and welcome back to Heart2Hartley Podcast. It's time to have a Heart2Hartley.
Wow. That's what we're doing?
That's what we're doing.
Wow.
And I'm Adam Dragoon. I'm here with Albert Hartley. And
hello, everyone.
We're here for episode 3 of the Heart2Hartley Podcast, and we're glad you're here listening to us. And we hope that it's been helpful for you so far. We want to jump in right where we left off in our last podcast episode. We had a lively discussion about communication and about informing people. And so if you didn't hear it, go back and take a listen to episode 2. But here in episode 3, we're going to jump right in where we left off and talk about another very important part of communication, and that is
listening.
Listening. Okay, I'm listening. What do I need to hear?
Can you hear me, Adam?
I can hear you.
Because there's some cheese dripping on my microphone from the introduction there. So but we'll let it go because I'm all about that. So listen, we want to know the next step to communication and informing. So I use two things when I talk about listening, and I can be a very active listener, and then I cannot listen at all. And I do it actively. When I'm not listening to you, I just I'm ignoring you. I have no idea what you're saying, and I don't want to hear what you have to say.
It's good to know.
Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm focused on something that's got nothing to do with what they're talking about. Or where they're going, I don't want to extend the energy to go down the road with them. So I'll just stop. I'll say, listen, I need to interrupt you because I'm not going to expend the energy to go where you're going. So let's talk about a word picture that may help everybody since we're in sort of cyberspace. I am a child of the 80s, so one of the great...
Rock on.
Yeah, right, absolutely. When the greatest things they ever have given to me as a gift for Christmas was a 200 CD changer.
Whoa.
Yes.
My mother-in-law still has one of those things.
Yes. Okay, well, I don't know. They're relics now, but when I got that CD, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So I took all my CDs, I loaded them up, and I could just do this sort of random thing, right? And it would pull the CD out of the little slot and put it in, and it would play the music. Well, I use that word picture to describe what people do when they're listening to people for the first time. Everybody has a CD or of information that they want to load into that slot when someone says the first or second word. They've already got a soundtrack in their head. They talking to somebody, especially for people you know, right? History provides you, oh, I've heard the same song from this person before. I don't need to hear this again. Oh, this is track 42 on disc 62. I got it. Don't waste my time, okay? That is something we talk about when I train young lawyers or I train anyone about communication. That's called anticipating. There's nothing more dominating than anticipating somebody. Because what you've done now, you've reduced them to a pre-recorded track. You've eliminated their ability to choose or to change or to process. You don't need to hear them because you've got this song in your head. You've already loaded it, and there you go. Mm-hmm. Now, this can be really problematic if you've had trauma, right?
Sure.
Because that trauma really, that music's loud.
Yes.
Really loud. So I think about it this way. Say you got some Barry Manilow on number 1, you got some AC/DC on track number 62, and then in the very back, you got some really heavy metal stuff. And when this particular person comes to you, you hear the click, the load, and then there you go, Black Sabbath is playing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And you're like, it's screeching in your mind. Yeah. This is not easy listening. So everyone has soundtracks, and I do too, right? Because you're unable to remove those discs without some work. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is the older you get, the more CDs you have, and the less slots you have to put them in.
Right.
So you start to anticipate people being one of the 200 songs that you've already got loaded up. Mm. And especially if you're married, oh, that happens all the time. Because I'm telling you right now, I've been with my wife since I was 15. I can tell you which track she's going to play. And
You've heard all the stories.
Right. And she can tell me what track I'm going to play because I don't have a lot of tracks. Yeah. Jerk, track 1, Jerk, track 3. All right. I mean, CD named Jerk. Okay. Yes. So, and that poor thing, and she definitely wants some more CDs in that rack. I just don't have any.
Okay.
All right. I just don't have any. So it's funny because we have this running joke that if she asks me if I want a sandwich or something, I say, sure. And she'll say, would you like a grilled cheese? I have never eaten a grilled cheese in my life. Okay? I've never ordered a grilled cheese. I've never eaten a grilled cheese. I don't like grilled cheese. And what's funny
How do
is
you not like grilled cheese?
Anyway, she says the same thing. But this is what's funny. She's waiting for that different CD to play.
Uh-huh.
And I'm loading the same CD like, honey, I don't eat grilled cheese. Now, if this is someone I just met, that question would be reasonable, correct? What kind of sandwich would you like?
Yeah.
Would you like a grilled cheese? Well, no, I don't eat grilled cheese. You mean I know this? We just met, right? 27 years, right? And she's asking because it just seems so absurd to her that someone of my size would not eat a grilled cheese. Okay. The point I'm making is if you keep that wheel running, we have to do the work to remove the CDs. We have to assume that past behavior is not a predictor of future events.
That's pretty tough to do, I must say.
Right, especially when we know past behavior is a predictor of future events for some people. The problem is if we do that, then we're leaving out for that person the possibility of change. Thus, we're leaving out hope.
Yeah.
Now, what we're not leaving out, if we hope that they're going to change, is disappointment. Because that's a coming. And I am like a fat baby, okay? I don't like being disappointed. I pound my fist. I always tell people, baby wants its bottle, okay? There's a reason I work for myself. I don't want to wait around. When I want it, I want it.
Yep.
Here's the deal, though. We have a responsibility to the future events of our life to clear the CDs out when they get stuck. My JB 200 CD changer, if I hit the fast forward button too much, it would get locked up, and I had to lift the case, and I had to take the CD and move it around because it was just too much information coming at the thing too fast. And I think sometimes that's happening with us, right? Our relationships are complicated. There's a lot of CDs there. With our spouses, our CDs are locked up. And nobody wants to take the time to lift off the top, take them out, maybe toss them away, okay? And so listening becomes a really important aspect because you're just not going to jam that CD into the player and it's going to play. That is, remember they would sort of pile up on each other. And you'd have one CD on top of the other, and you couldn't do it, right? So when we talk about active listening, okay, we are reducing the anticipation of someone's statements. That's really a concern for you, not for them. Giving them the opportunity of maybe being fresh and new might lead to your disappointment, but it also could lead to a whole new area of life that you had never experienced before.
Right. So
what I want people to realize is that when you're listening to people, you have to check yourself to see if that music, that background music, right? I got people, listen, I deal with people all the time. I've got the people who I like. May play some Van Morrison behind them. I've got the people I don't like, and that's Gin Blossoms. I hate the Gin Blossoms. No offense to the right, but I hear them, and I'm like, ugh. When they walk into the room, right? Gin Blossoms was playing. They've never said a word, right? And as a pastor, you know this, right? You have a cacophony of people in your audience that you're like, oh, the music is so loud today. And some people have the same soundtrack, right?
Sure. Yep.
They're the Victim soundtrack, a What Was Me soundtrack, right?
Sure. Yep.
But that doesn't necessarily mean they can't change.
That's right.
All right. The third thing is the predictability part of it. When you're listening to people, you have to stop assuming that you can predict where they're going. I can't tell you how many times when I'm talking to someone and they're gone, they've gone, and I'm like, I lost you.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm here. Nope, you're not. You're gone. I don't know where you went.
There was an episode of The Simpsons,
right,
where Homer's brain said, "I don't know about you,
right,
I'm out of here."
Exactly. or it's so natural that they know the predictability of the path.
Right.
Here's the problem with that, though. A lot of themes in our life when it comes to communication mask similar traits, but the place they go is completely different.
Okay. Give me an example of that one.
All right. Let's for your wife, for example, or spouse. All right. Okay. You're talking to a spouse. You don't have to be 2 or 3 minutes into a conversation to think you know where it's going.
Right.
The problem is they change on you. And because of our familiarity, We don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else sees it. You don't see it. And what your spouse or other significant other is really asking you to do is give them the space to not predict them.
Yeah.
I have a real hard time with that, okay? Because my wife and I have known each other a long time. I still see her. This is the truth. When I see her as 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She's 42 years old.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for my wife, I have not gotten better looking. I've gotten worse. She has improved in every way, shape, or form. But I still see her in my mind's eye. Not even my mind's eye. When I see her, when I look at her, I see her in geometry class in middle school. That's what I see.
Right.
She's not in geometry class in middle school.
No.
She's a mother of two. She's got her own stuff going on. But I don't see that. So I have to stop uploading the CD into the changer that says geometry class, whatever. That's what I'm uploading. Because what it ultimately does, I'm predicting her.
Okay, right.
How arrogant of me to assume that she's not going to change. I don't like it, but it is really arrogant of me that we can sort of hold our life together. And so this conversation about listening really is a much larger conversation.
Sure is. Yep.
About our ability to want to control people. Because really, that's what we want. We want to control the outcomes of every interaction we can possibly have. That's unrealistic, but that is our hope. It's my hope.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have to worry tragedy and sadness and loss and rejection. Mm-hmm. But that's the life we're living, right?
Yep.
So when I tell people, someone asked me the other day, what do you think life's about? I'm like, it's about rejection and hope. Like, which one comes first? I'm like, there's hope, and then there's rejection, and then there's hope, and then there's rejection. Because you're hoping for something that you may not get. And there's sweet times when you actually get it. They're so huge. They're like, okay, I can go back in the game for this again. But life can beat you down.
Mm-hmm.
When the CDs you're playing, and I tell people this all the time, if someone doesn't have a lot of friends, here's what that really means to me. They are so powerfully playing the music so loudly, no one can talk to them. Why interact with someone when they don't want to hear what you have to say? Mm-hmm. Because we'd really rather just have everybody in a place. Well, my daughters, for example, I'm struggling with this right now. I don't mind telling you. There's so much change going on in my life. The other day, I was like a large child in the middle of my living room. And I have two daughters, and I have my wife. They're all going through this second volume of their life. And I said, I don't like what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. And my wife's like, do you know what a big fat baby you look like? Yeah, someone took my ice cream, and I'm angry about it. But I'm having to clean out my CD collection.
Yeah.
Because my 19-year-old is not 12. My 17-year-old is not 9. My 42-year-old wife is not 15. Mm-hmm. And while the essence of those people are still there, it is arrogant of me to think that I can hold them into a place and not listen to them. Mm-hmm. And it also assumes that their better version of themselves that they're becoming is not as good as the old version.
Right.
And that's when you really start to struggle with your life. I do. Struggle with my life. Is that I'm wanting to play some old tunes. Well, there's 21 Pilots now. I mean, I never would have thought to listen to 21 Pilots. But they're playing. There's new CDs coming out. Mm-hmm. So I think when you're listening, you're trying to keep the best of people in the front of your mind.
Wow, yeah.
Hopefully the soundtrack of their life that you've already think that you've composed for them can adjust. And we have a responsibility to the people in our life to throw away the old CDs. Because if not, we keep them bound, really.
Yeah.
And we really allow them to never become who they want to be. And that's the power of listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is essentially what it comes down to is the flexibility to change or to allow change in your life. In a previous job that I had, I was a teacher. And what I was always amazed at people who would come in who were, 70, 80, or 90 years old, and they still want to learn something. And that always blew me away because, you know, the older you get, the less flexible you are, the less you think that you've learned as much as there is to learn. And so that's been kind of a motto of my life, is never become the smartest guy in the room, because that's when you stop growing. That's when you stop learning and you stop listening.
Right. And I think listening is powerful. Okay. Especially when you have an agenda. Like me as a father, my agenda for my daughter is for them to be protected and okay. And there are times when I don't want to hear what they have to say because I know the path leads to heartache for them.
Yeah.
But that assumes that I can actually help them in some regard by not listening to them, which is really not true. And so some of the techniques, just some quick tips.
Okay.
Ask for some help.
Yeah.
Right? You know, my wife, we talk about exchanging authority, right? And I'll say, I want authority over this because I want certain results out of this conversation. But I'm not sure I'm the best one suited to have the conversation. And she said, well, you're not listening to this person. Okay, well, I'm going to give it to you. And she says, okay, I'll take it. Here's what we're trying to accomplish, okay? So making sure you can enlist some people to help. You know, if you're a person who believes in the Bible, then there's Matthew 18, which if you look at that is a whole process of communication during conflict. You go to the person, well, that doesn't work. Then you get another person. They say, hey, here's what was going on. One person, okay, we need a group of people because this dude's just not getting it. Yeah. Okay. We are so avoiding that in most of our lives. Go to a friend and say, listen, man, I'm having a problem with this dude, or I'm having a problem with this situation. I need you to help me communicate this, mediate this, arbitrate this. We're so avoiding that situation because we want to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also that it's so important to have someone in your life who's an authority figure.
Absolutely.
Because for many people, they are their own authority, and they don't have anyone else to go to when they need help.
Right. And submitting to someone who is an authority, right? I mean, I believe it's funny because my associates who are just started practicing law, one of them earlier on said, I've got an opinion of something. I'm like, no, you don't, because you have no basis on which to make that opinion. None.
Right.
Because whatever you've done, you haven't practiced law. So here's the deal. Nobody cares. That's hard in our society because we're egalitarian, democratic, and DIY. We can all do it ourselves.
Right.
Well, guess what? You can't.
That's right.
And if you're not a great listener or a good listener, find someone who is and learn what they're doing. Let them teach you. And what you're really talking about there, Adam, is submitting to someone who is in authority over you.
That's a dirty word in our submit. Ouch.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate it. But I'm learning now. I do it like a fat kid who's lost a Twinkie, right? He kicks and screams. I mean, that's just me. Like, I'm gonna let you have it, but I'm gonna be nasty all the way. And part of that is because it's ripping out of my comfort zone. Listening really is about being uncomfortable and being secure in the fact that this information may be uncomfortable for us, but we're going to be better for it down the road. So enlist some help.
Okay.
Write down what the person's saying. And one of the things I like to finish with is one of Stephen Covey's principles of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is to understand before you're understood.
Okay.
And I would recommend that book, by the way. But that principle has changed my life. It's changed the way I've practiced law. It's changed the way I interact with my spouse at times. It's changed the way I interact with my kids. To listen to them and understand them before I pronounce a judgment or pronounce information. It's so powerful. So I would communicate to you, and hopefully people are listening, that listening is an active category. Clean out the CDs, take them out. You can always get new ones, okay? Understand people before you're understood, and be patient. Be patient.
Yeah. It's hard to do in a microwave generation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
But it's necessary.
It's crucial.
Okay, well, with that, we've reached the end of episode 3 of the Heart2Hartley podcast. We hope you're enjoying these. We'd like to hear your feedback. We do have an email address if you'd like to communicate with myself or Albert. It is the name of the podcast, Heart, then the number 2, then the last name Hartley, HARTLEY @gmail.com. We would love to hear your comments, your feedbacks. We'd love to have you subscribe. We'd love to have you give us a rating and a review in iTunes. And we would also love to have you share us online if you have social networks, Facebook, Twitter, etc. We would love to have you join us in this journey as we move forward on the Heart2Hartley podcast. We are very excited about future topics. If maybe you have some ideas or suggestions about things that we could talk about, we would love to hear about that as well. We are listening to you. And so join us again on the Heart2Hartley podcast. We'll see you next time.